All right, so let's talk about your presentation. So during our next class meeting, you're going to be giving this presentation, and let me go over some of the requirements for it. The first thing you should note is that the presentation should be about 12 minutes. That's what you're striving for. Does it need to be 12 minutes on the dot? No, but it should be close to that. So if you're not going for more than 10 minutes, there's a problem. But also if you're going over, say, that like 14-minute mark, that's a little bit too much too. So shoot for 12 minutes. The second thing is when you are doing your presentation, you're going to want to provide some kind of visuals to reinforce what you're saying. So this might be a PowerPoint. It might be tools or books that you have with you that you're showing the group. Before, even though we're virtual, I've seen people have posters that they hold up, or they've had like kind of a little book that they've made to showcase their collection. What's ever best for you. What I don't want is for you to have a PowerPoint slide and for everything you say to also be written on the screen. That becomes information overload and it doesn't help me remember what your presentation is about. So when I say a visual, I mean some kind of image, some kind of symbol that's going to like stimulate, that's going to help me reinforce what you're saying. The third thing I want you to think about is I want you to incorporate some active learning for the group. In other words, how are you going to get your group involved? So that 12 minutes is not just you kind of sitting up here, kind of sharing with the group, just kind of talking at them. This is going to be active for your listeners. I want you to get them involved in your presentation, right? They're not passive listeners, they're active listeners. So think of ways that you can get them involved. So let's talk a little bit about like kind of the content, the meats and potatoes of your presentation. Well, in your presentation, you're going to want to give an overview of the collection, sharing why this topic was selected. So I know that Adeline is doing it about, not Adeline, I think Adeline. Yes, Adeline is doing it about space, right? So she would begin by kind of giving an overview, like what's going to be in this topic. So not just telling me, space is, giving me an overview of the different aspects of space that she's going to be talking about, and then sharing a little bit more about her motivation for why she selected that topic. All right, so once you give an overview and share why it was selected, you're then going to kind of go in depth and give 2 book talks for books in your collection. So you will have collected 10 to 15 high quality books related to that topic. There's not enough time for you to talk about all of them, so you're going to choose 2 and you're going to give a book talk. And it might be the one that you give today, you're going to do it again. But when you're giving that book talk, it's not a book summary, it's not a book report. You're sharing your interpretation and your evaluation of it. So thinking about the literary merit. What are things that the author did that made this book really well written? Thinking about moves the illustrator made that made this book well illustrated, had a good book design. And also thinking about representation, thinking about Rudine Bishop's metaphor of windows, mirrors, sliding glass doors, or Aditi's concept of the danger of a single story. How does that come into play when you're thinking about this book? So bringing all these course concepts together. So once you give that book talk, the next thing you're going to do is really share your rationale for why should this collection be presented to children in the community, either in a classroom, in a library, in a bookstore. Why are these books important? And so in a way, think about that you're like selling this collection to me, right? You want my buy-in. So why should I take interest in this collection? And then I'd also like you to describe your process of finding and selecting books. I think this is going to really be interesting for us, right? We all have different ways of finding books. So you're going to share your own process and also your own criteria. And we started talking about that criteria last week. So you're just going to formally share that with your group and also talk about your process. And finally, I want you to think of kind of one reader response activity, one way, again, to get that group involved, right? So maybe after doing the book talk, you have them respond to that book in some way. So let's talk a little bit more let's talk a little bit more in depth about what some of these things look like. So I've asked you to provide visuals that reinforce what's being shared. So too often, what I see happen in presentations, and this is not just presentations in children's literature, I mean, these are presentations when I go to national conferences or I go to other classrooms, is that everything we say is also on the slide. And that is shown to just overload the brain. So while it might be easier for me as the presenter to see all my bulleted points and I can just read them off, it doesn't help my audience at all. Like you might as well not have a visual, or you might not, or you shouldn't be there to talk, right? It's competing. So if you have all these bulleted points, move them to the notes section so your group can't see them, and instead think of a visual that would better capture what you're saying. Right? So this is what we're looking for, right? You're speaking, you're saying these ideas, and then you have images, you have visuals reinforcing this. And this is what we want to see in presentations. Guys, not just in this class, but in all your presentations, this is something you should strive for. So the last thing I want to bring to your attention is thinking about how are you going to incorporate active learning that's going to get your group involved. So I'm going to kind of open up to the group to see what ideas I have, to see what ideas you have. So consider this question of how could you engage your group in your presentation. So I'm going to drop you a link to a website called Answer Garden. It's very similar to the website Slido we've used before. But what you'll do is you'll click that link. It's going to bring up something that looks like this, and type your answer here. What's one way that you can get your group involved in your presentation so they're not falling asleep on the other end, but they're actively involved? Let's just take 30 seconds for you to drop a quick answer in. Let's take a look at some of your responses. So I can see Kahoot is a very popular idea amongst all of us. Okay, having your group do a skit. Use of the buttons on Collaborate. So thinking about they could do that agree, disagree. You have the option to do a poll or smiley face. Have them do an activity, ask questions. Yes, yes, no questions, open-ended questions. Okay, asking kind of questions to think about the topic. I have a feeling this is Addie right here. You know, ask if they know any female musicians. I know Addie's presentation is on female musicians. So that's great, kind of helping them find connections between your topic and their own personal experiences. Let me just refresh this one more time and see if any other new ideas have popped up. Yes, a lot more. Doing polls, word puzzles. So these are some great ideas that you'll have access to. You can go back and look at it. But I want to share with you just a few more. So some active learning strategies that I like to use is have your group draw a symbol. Have them, you know, we use words all the time. Have them make a visual. So let's say that my topic is on family. Maybe I'll begin my presentation and say, you know, today my presentation, you know, my collection is on family. These are the things it includes. This is my rationale. But before we go any further, I want you to take a piece of paper and a pencil and draw a symbol that kind of defines what family means for you. So you could do this on any number of topics. I know we have ones on understanding race. We have sports. We have music. These are all different things that you could have your group kind of define first, and then you could unpack. And they could define it by drawing an image and then sharing it on the screen. Something else you could do is maybe before you introduce your topic, you do something called an I see, I think, I wonder. So let's say you know that my topic is on activism, right? So I could just hold up this book and have them kind of ask, okay, so what do you see? So I might say, before I tell you my topic, this is one of the books from my collection. I want to see if you can infer, you can guess what my collection's about. So what are things that you see here? Then asking them, what are things you think? What is this making you wonder? So you're pulling them in, you're getting them engaged by doing an activity like, and I see, I think, I wonder. You might engage your group in a quick write. Some of you said posing an open-ended question, right? So you could have them, you could pose a question and give them 30 seconds to do a quick write and then post that in the chat or do a quick share out. And then another thing many of you posted is they could do a poll. You could do a poll like using this website here, Answer Garden. There's also the website called Slido. You can actually do a poll right here in Blackboard. You could do a Google poll using Google survey, and I know also Kahoot. So there's many different ways you can make it interactive. All right, so let's talk about the fine details of when this presentation is going to be. So the presentation is going to be next week, Wednesday, April 21st, and it's going to be 4:30 to 5:30. And how it's going to run is going to be different than usually how we run class. Unfortunately, I am going to have to be out of town. I have a family emergency that is taking me out of town and is requiring me to be there. So what we're going to do, instead of meeting in the whole classroom like we usually do, you're going to meet in a designated online room. So let me put those designated rooms on the screen. So when you go into our online classroom, you'll notice that there's several different rooms on Blackboard, right? One says my virtual office, one says the online classroom, but then they also say room A, B, C, D, E, F. So instead of going to the online classroom, you're going to go to your designated room. So find your name on the right there, and I tried to break us up so that there weren't doubles in a group. Like many of us are doing sports and family, so I made sure there's only like one family or one sports person in a group. So on April 21st, here are those directions of how your group's going to be run. You guys are going to be running it since I won't be there. So I'm going to go over kind of in detail how it will work. So the first thing you'll do is you'll log onto Blackboard and enter your assigned room before 4:30. So one more time, let me show you. Let me make sure the right classroom real quick. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to go into Blackboard Collaborate, click that online classroom button. I'm not going to go into the online classroom like I usually do. I'm going to go into my designated room, A, B, C, D, or so on. All right? So you'll go into that designated room. Once you're there, just greet one another. Make sure your cameras are on. I am going to require that your cameras are working. So test them before you get there. If they're not on, you will get an email from me kind of saying, hey, these are presentations. Like, we need to see your face. If you are struggling with the camera capability, go ahead to campus. All the computers in our library are equipped with cameras, so you can use them there. Just make sure you bring headphones so not everyone's hearing your conversation. So once you greet everyone, I'm going to ask the person whose name is highlighted in yellow to hit the record button, and you're going to be the first person to present. So in room A, I can see that Addie is going to go first. So I'm going to pretend that I'm Addie for a moment. Lucky me. So I'm Addie. I'm going to go into room A. So I would click room A, would join that session. Right, I would assume that other people are in that room, my other 3 people are there, and I'm going to want to record this session. So when I want to record that session, Addie's going to be the one who takes control. She's going to hit that menu button over here on the left. She'll click that menu button, and then it says Start Recording. She'll hit that Start Recording button, and if I see a camera with a red dot, that means I know recording is in process. So Addie and everyone else who's first on the list, that's all you have to do. Again, click that menu button and hit that start recording, and you'll know it's recording when you see the camera with the red button. And the reason I'm asking you to record the session is because I can't be in all those different rooms at once, so it allows me to go back and look over your presentation. You guys are putting a ton of work into it, so I want to make sure that I appreciate that. So again, if your name is highlighted in yellow, you'll hit that record button, and then you'll present first. All right. So then the person who's highlighted in green, I'm going to ask that you take on the role of timekeeper. So your job is to ensure that presentations are between 10 to 12 minutes so we don't go over that hour mark, right? So Addie's just hit that record button and she's going to begin presenting. Cassie's going to kind of use her phone. She can use a timer on her computer just to make sure that Addie stays kind of within that 10 to 12 minute period. You know, we don't want Addie to go under 10 minutes. You know, she has a lot to share. But if she gets to that 12-minute mark, then Cassie will just say, hey, just, you know, you're at 12 minutes, just, you know, try to wrap it up. And that's all you have to do. So Cassie, Kevin, Doreen, IBK, Hannah, Taylor, that's what all you'll do. You'll watch the time. When they get to that 12-minute, just let them know. And it doesn't mean you have to end your presentation right there and then, but just so that person knows their 12 minutes is up. And you'll do that for each person, including yourself. So Cassie, you'll be timekeeper for Addie, yourself, Gavin, and Adeline. All right, so next you'll see that some of our names are highlighted in blue. So if your name is highlighted in blue, your job is after someone presents, you're going to invite questions or feedback to that presenter. All right, so let's take a look. Let's say that I am in group A and I know Gavin. So Addie has finished her presentation. Cassie said, hey, Addie, you're at that 12-minute mark. Addie finishes up another minute. When Addie's done, Gavin's going to take control real quick and say, hey, does anyone have any questions or feedback for Addie? Gavin, your job is to kind of initiate that feedback. You know, you could ask, does anyone have any wows or wonders? So you're going to be that person that prompts that. And I'd like you to engage in 2 minutes where you're giving Addie feedback. More than just, hey, good job, but being specific. What is it that you like? And Gavin, you would then do that for Cassie, yourself, and Adeline. So Gavin, Jenny, Jessica, Kim, Trey, Mac, you are going to be that initiator of feedback for all those different people in your group, including yourself. And so the last thing, and then you're going to repeat this process, and you're going to present in the order listed. So Addie will present, Cassie would present, Gavin would present, then Adeline would present, and then you would be done. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to see if anyone has any questions about the presentation date or format. Now is the time to ask.